Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. In this video I will read to you Russia's ultimatum issued to Ukraine, and that is the memorandum, the so-called memorandum that the Russians gave the Ukrainian delegation in Istanbul yesterday when they had the second round of talks for 2025. Before I do that, I will have a little summary of how we got over there, and that is what were the expectations, what the Ukrainians' offer was for the talks, and what the memorandum, the entirety, the full text of the memorandum was, which indeed it is not a unconditional surrender. It is Russia's terms that Russia issued at the beginning of its special military operation. So let's start with Zelensky. And this article comes from Ukrinform. It is from yesterday, and Zelensky says that Ukraine will insist on unconditional ceasefire in Istanbul. Well, this is obviously an immature wish, because you can't just have it like that. You need details. And the Russians said on numerous occasions, I think rightfully so, we need to talk about details. Yes, that's okay, that sounds good, but hey, what are the details? It's like, hey, you need to give me your car. Hold on, we're gonna talk about the details. No, you're gonna give me the car. So that's kind of what Zelensky is saying here. Next one. Russia Today. Details of Ukraine's proposals for talks with Russia revealed. Kiev demands diverge considerably from the terms earlier voiced by Moscow, the agency noted. That's something I've been saying for some time. These guys' terms are like this. Russian terms, Ukrainian terms, or the West terms are like this. They don't intersect. They're parallel and equidistant. That is, they will not agree with that. The peace in Ukraine will be achieved only when one side loses the war in the territory. That's it. No negotiations. That would be impossible, I would say. Next, USA. Russia demands harsh terms at Ukraine's peace talks. The reason why I picked this one is for the first two paragraphs. Istanbul. Russia told Ukraine at peace talks that it would only agree to end the war if Kiev gives up big new chunks of territory and accepts limits on the side of its army, according to a memorandum reported by Russian media on June 2nd. Don't worry, we have it right here that I will read it in a few seconds. So the harsh demands is the first one. Of course, these two things, chunks of its territory and accepts limits of its size of its army, they've been saying this from before they entered, where is that at? Unprovoked in Ukraine. The terms formally presented at negotiations in Istanbul highlighted Moscow's refusal to compromise, on its long-standing war goals. So now you know they have justifications, despite call by President Donald Trump to end the bloodbath in Ukraine. So yeah, Donald Trump is the compassionate one, and these guys have long-standing war goals. All right, Ukraine has repeatedly rejected the Russian conditions as tantamount to surrender. That's correct. And then we have the other baboons from Reuters, the same thing. Russia sets out punitive terms at peace talks with Ukraine. All right, so this is the same thing right there. The same paragraphs, two paragraphs, one from Reuters and the other one is from USA Today. I didn't think these guys were together, but if you look at the Vladimir Soldansky and then you got Vladimir, the same article on two different outlets. Next one, New Voice of Ukraine. This is from June 3rd, which is today. Russian memorandum demands Ukraine's complete surrender. This propagandist from Institute for the Study of War, they got it right. Why? Because you got the Russians off their beds to come and smack you, and they did. The Telegraph. Putin hands surrender terms to Ukraine. Correct. Now, all you can do is just reject them and keep fighting until the last Ukrainian. And then the Poles will be activated, the Romanians and the Baltic states. Next one. Former Russian president admits Istanbul talks not aimed at peace, but at Russia's complete victory. Correct. The Russians, and these guys know it, this is Medvedev, these guys know it. Russia, how should I put it? You have a person who doesn't want to fight, but can fight, and says, okay, stop, no, let's paint, let's play ping pong, do something else, come on, stop. And then when you get that person to, okay, this is the end of the line, this is the red line, the line in the sand that you crossed, this is crossing the Rubicon, there's no more turning back, that's it. I'm going to come and finish the job. I'm not going to go half measures. I'm going to finish the job. And these guys know it, and the Russians know it. The problem is the population is not allowed to comprehend this. The Russians will finish the job. Whatever the end of that, the outcome would be in the way of the destruction. If they have to bomb Berlin, they will do it. Or if they have to bomb London, they will do it. Or Paris. There's no question about it. They will do it. They try to not employ everything right now. They try to tell these guys, stop. We can, but we won't yet. So what this guy says, no, we don't aim at peace. Well, you aim at peace, but Russia's complete victory. So let's see what this guy said. We have it here. This is the purpose of the Russian memorandum published yesterday. Instead, he said they are needed to secure Russia's fastest possible victory. I don't think that will be a nuclear weapon, and they don't use it as of now. It's correct. All right. Medvedev stated that Istanbul negotiations are not intended to bring about a compromise peace based on what he called imaginary, unrealistic conditions, according to the Russians. So, yes, indeed, he means complete victory or leave us the fuck alone. But leave us the fuck alone is not an option anymore. And let's go to read the memorandum. It's kind of long. Russian memorandum on settlement of Ukraine conflict. Full text. Moscow handed over the document to Kiev during the second round of talks in Istanbul. All right, here it is. Oh, let's frame it right here. Okay. Proposals of the Russian Federation Memorandum on Settlement of Ukraine Crisis. Section 1. Key parameters for a definitive settlement, not peace, definitive settlement. International legal recognition of the incorporation into the Russian Federation of Crimea, the Luhansk People Republic and Donetsk People Republic, and the Zaporozhia and Kherson regions. Full withdrawal from these territories of armed forces of Ukraine, units and other Ukrainian paramilitary formations. Number 1 is the main thing that they said in their 4 non-negotiable at the beginning of this garbage in Ukraine. So there's the same thing. Is nothing new. Neutrality of Ukraine. That is no NATO. Again, all these things, number 1 and number 2, are the same thing. They said it over and over again. And the Western chancelleries, they know it. They are aware of it. Neutrality of Ukraine, implying its refusal to join military alliances and coalitions. Did not mention NATO yet. As well as a ban on any military activity by third-party states on Ukrainian territory. You're not going to have peacekeeping troops and shit in Ukraine. And the development of foreign armed formations, military bases, and military infrastructure there. So no NATO, no European Union, no Starmer, no Macron, no Merz, nobody here. Termination of all existing international treaties and agreement inconsistent with the provisions of paragraph 2 of this section, and refusal to conclude any such agreements in the future. That means everything you dealt and you agreed with the NATO country states, with the 100, the Brits said it, the security guarantees or something for 100 years, that's gone. It's gonna be null, void, and garbage. I wonder what the Russians would do with Ukraine's national debt. Will they cancel all these debts that were thrown onto Ukraine? Because after all, the Ukrainians have to pay that. What's going to happen with that? Because a lot of banks, European Union, gave them loans. Will they keep having those loans, or the Russians say, stop, 0. Let's talk out or negotiate. 4. Confirmation of Ukraine's status as a state without nuclear or other weapons of mass destruction, with a direct ban on their receipt, transit, and deployment on Ukrainian territory. Clear. Establishment, that's the demilitarization right there. Establishment of maximum limits for the size of the forces and the other Ukrainian military formations, the quantity of armaments and military equipment. So that is, we're going to limit your military. Guarantees of the full rights, freedoms, and interests of the Russian and Russian-speaking population, granting the Russian language official status. That means you cannot discriminate against the Russian and Russian-speaking population. Legislative prohibition of the glorification and propaganda of Nazism and neo-Nazism, dissolution of nationalist organizations and parties. Well, I'm disagreeing with this. No dissolution of nationalist organizations. But with these guys, they talk about Antonio Banderas, with Stepan Bandera and others. So with this one, I know you can't be a nationalist unless you act idiotically. But you can say, well, the same thing here. Well, these guys already proved themselves, I guess, with Poland. Ask them. Lifting of all current economic sanctions, bans, and restrictive measures between the Russian Federation and Ukraine, and refusal to impose new ones. Resolution of issues related to family reunification and displaced persons. Waiver of mutual claims for damages, including during hostilities. Well, waiver of mutual claims. So that means we destroyed you, you destroyed us. 0. Washed our hands. Start over from 0. Removal of restrictions imposed on the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. Gradual restoration of diplomatic and economic relations, including gas transit to Europe, because we're waiting. They will beg for that. Transport and other connections, including with third-party states. Section number 2. Ceasefire conditions. Option 1. Commencement of complete withdrawal of the AFU, Armed Forces of Ukraine, and other Ukrainian paramilitary formations from the territory of the Russian Federation, including the DPR, LPR, and Zaporozhye and Kherson regions, and their pullback from the borders of the Russian Federation to a distance agreed upon by the parties. Ukrainians don't want that. What do you mean? In accordance with provisions to be approved. Option 2. Package proposal. Number 1. Prohibition of redeployment of the AFU and other Ukrainian paramilitary formations, except for movement aimed at withdrawal from the borders of the Russian Federation to a distance agreed. Okay. Cessation of mobilization and commencement of demobilization. So no more arming, you guys. That's it. Cessation of foreign supplies of military products and foreign military assistance to Ukraine, including the provision of satellite communication services and intelligence data. That has to aim at the NATO. Number 4. Elimination of military presence of third countries on Ukraine territory. Out. Cessation of participation of foreign specialists and trainers in military operations on Ukraine's side. Guarantees of Ukraine's reunification, renunciation of sabotage and subvertive activities against the Russian Federation and its citizens. Establishment of a bilateral center for monitoring and control of ceasefire regime, mutual amnesty for political prisoners, that means we're going to let you go, and release of all detained civilians. Lifting the martial law in Ukraine, that's nice. Announcement of the date for elections of the President of Ukraine and the Verkhovna Rada, which must take place no later than 100 days after the lifting of the martial law. Who is going to count the votes? That's what's important. You can let them vote. Who's going to count the votes? I want. If I count the votes, I win. All right? Signing of an agreement on the implementation of the provisions contained in Section 1. All right, we are the last section, section number 3. Sequence of steps and timeline for implementation. So let's see some deadlines here. 1. Work commences on drafting the treaty text. A 2 to 3 day ceasefire is declared for collection of bodies of the fallen in the gray zone. That's been agreed, or at least the Ukrainians are making fun of that. Zelensky said that's idiotic. Number 3, 6,000 bodies of the armed forces of Ukraine servicemen are unilaterally transferred to the AFU. 4, that's already agreed. A ceasefire memorandum is signed with specific dates for fulfillment of all provisions. A 3-day ceasefire. Okay, let's see this one. A 30-day ceasefire regime takes effect from the moment the armed forces of Ukraine withdrawal begins. Complete withdrawal of the armed forces of Ukraine units from the territory of the Russian Federation and full implementation of the quote-unquote package agreement must be completed within these 30 days. So you gotta get out of your territory or whatever it is within 30 days. This is the ceasefire Zelensky wants. Number 6, elections are conducted and government bodies are formed on the territory of Ukraine. So bringing democracy like the Americans. The Russians learned fast, bringing democracy, that's great. The treaty is signed, no shit. Who's signing it? Let's see. Who's gonna sign it? The signed treaty is endorsed by a legally binding UN Security Council resolution. That means the Americans and everybody else must agree. That means they're going to tie them to that. The Americans will oppose that 100%. The signed treaty is endorsed by a legally binding UN Security. Okay, the treaty is ratified, enforced, and implemented. All right. So that's clearly what the Russian says. We won, you want him out. These are our terms. The victor sets the terms, not the loser. The Ukrainians or the West, as of now, they don't want to consider themselves as losers, but they are weighing into, should we go all the way in, or we should continue the same way, maybe with a little bit more pressure. This is what the discussion is. Should we stop and agree kind of to what these guys demand, which is the 4 non-negotiable, my friends. No NATO, demilitarization, denazification, and the recognition of the territories. These were from the very beginning the unprovoked and unjustified aggression of the Russian Federation on Ukraine. But they had some justifications, though, unacceptable to us. But our justifications are all acceptable, always bringing democracy, right? Oh, yeah, and freedom to Iraq, for instance. And we brought what? Our companies over there to suck their oil. So here is, my friends, this will be 100% in its entirety. This memorandum will not be accepted by anybody but the Russians. So it's true that you can tweak it left and right. This is not, I mean, if you look at it, it could look as a how do you call it, surrender or punitive, or what was the word these guys used? Surrender terms. You can use that, of course, but it is a negotiating process. The Russians came with this memorandum, and these guys have to negotiate. And they negotiated out of those, how many were over there? Let's say about 50 points. From those 50 points, the Ukrainians agreed to 2, I think. And the one was with exchange of population, exchange of prisoners, 6,000 of them. There was the bodies, the bodies of the dead. They have 6,600. Can you believe 6,000 bodies stored where? Identified, and they will be transferred, swapped. And then the guys in the gray zone, a 3-day temporary ceasefire. They're kind of, these 2 are agreed upon. And anything else out of those, I think they're unacceptable to the West. Not Ukrainians will not agree with that. I mean, who would? Would you? Unless you're losing, and unless you realize that, okay, what are the options? Losing everything? Because the Russians will not stop. You have to start from this premises or fact. The Russians will not stop. That's it. You got him out. You got the Russian. Got out of his warm bed with his lady. He went outside because it's cold outside, but you made too much noise in front of his house. He told you, back the fuck off. Stop. You kept talking over there with your other weasels. He had to pull out, get off his bed, put his come out naked outside, smack everybody, send them to goddamn where. Do you think they're going to just go back to allow those guys to come back here and again get him out again? No, he's not going to do that. He's going to make sure that these guys get such a big smack that he's going to push them to the next neighborhood. You can talk over there, you can make noise over there, you can pop your butts how much you want over there. I'm not going to come out for that again. So these guys know it. So the Ukrainians have the option of fighting to the last Ukrainian, which I think the Russians will go either continuous forever war, which will end up with what? One side must collapse. Which one that's going to be? And the Americans and the West has the option of we're going to go all through, all in, or we're going to just continue the way we are. Or we just say, you know what, Ukraine, that's it. We lost. Or you're not going to recognize we lost. We're going to say you lost, even though we lost. Because without us, you would have lost in 2 weeks. So it's 3 years and 3 months and 2 weeks. So 3 years and 2 months, 3 months, you already, that's because of us. All right. Thank you very much for being with me again today. This is a no-starter. Let's say it like this. But at least we know again exactly what the Russians want. That's the conditions, you take it or not. And as Medvedev said, for good reasons, this is not a peace with you right now. It's a temporary 30-day ceasefire or something. No, complete victory. You want to continue? Ready, let's go. Round number 5. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.